Right, hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Bola Chali event by My Voice Unheard. I'm Nawaz and I'm your host for tonight. And I'm also the co-founder for My Voice Unheard, which is an initiative that highlights Muslim narratives. And I'd like to start with my story of, the story of My Voice Unheard. And a couple of years ago, in 2013, I came here as an exchange student, and I was placed in a very small town, Clarion, in Pennsylvania. Does anyone know? Okay, yeah, I didn't know that either. So it was like a really small town, and it was my first time out of the country, and it was really nice, and I was so excited. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. And this one time, I remember all of us, we went to an open cinema. And for me, it was particularly very exciting because I had never been to an open cinema, so I didn't even know what it was. So it was it was a really exciting experience. And number two, I was going there to watch a movie. That's one of my favorite superheroes. That's Iron Man. And so I was really excited. And so we're all there and we're friends and we have our cushions lying on the ground and we're chilling and liking the story. And by the end of that movie, there was a bit where the superhero particularly mentions to some people, he was saying, these are Pakistani terrorists. And I was like, this is so embarrassing. We're not terrorists. I mean, a lot of things happen in Pakistan, sure. But that's not who we are. And I was really embarrassed and disappointed. And so since then, I had this in my mind that we're not just this. Pakistani Muslims are stereotyped. Yes, we have problems, but we're not just this. And this is why I started My Voice Unheard about 2 years ago with the idea to really highlight the invisible narrative that exists within our society. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree to this, that about most of the news that we have on the media is, it's on the extremes. It's either extremely positive or extremely negative, and particularly to Pakistan. And my idea was to highlight other people, the lives and stories, the challenges of people like you and me, and to really use that as a counter-narrative to talk about what diversity we have within the Muslim community and what other thoughts we have apart from extremism or really traditional, conventional thoughts. So once I started My Voice Unheard, I wanted to extend this. So we were working just online and on social media, and I wanted to extend that platform to other people where we could have them come and talk and listen to these stories and really create an experience together and have the opportunity to talk to other Pakistani Muslims, talk what they go through, talk about what they do, why they do that, and how is life for them? What's their identity? How are they expressing themselves? So here we are, My Voice Unheard and Bola Chali today, and we're going to have an exciting time, I suppose, talking to three really great people. But before that, I'm going to call a poet and a singer, Rabia Siri, and she has a very interesting ethnic background. She was born in Uzbekistan. She was raised in Turkey for a while. Yeah, and then she moved to the US. So she has a lot of cultural diversity, and she expresses that through her singing and through her poetry. And so today, Rabia has a couple of things for us. So guys, Rabia, see.
Alright, so let me just talk about myself a little, and then I'll sing for you guys. So let me just give a little background. I grew up in Uzbekistan, although my family was originally from Turkey. And currently I'm studying Middle Eastern Studies, doing my master's. But I want to continue on with a PhD in Russian history, hopefully. And it's completely unrelated, I know, but I'm interested in a lot of things. And I'm mostly interested in studying Islam and Muslims in Russia and the former Soviet Union, especially Central Asia. And so Anna wanted me to also talk about myself, but I really didn't know what to say. I guess what I wanted to highlight, like she said, from the outside, we all seem like Muslims all seem like they all have the same ideas and they all have the same lifestyles, but we know this is not true. And I think events like these are a great way to highlight that we're in fact very diverse. And I see this, I see this problem both like from like non-Muslims perspective and also within the Muslim community. On the one hand, we're seen as this one homogenous group who thinks the same way, and on the other, we're expected to think the same way by people who are like us. And this is not just unique for Muslims. It happens in every community. It's as if like we're expected not to have complex identities, and it's hard for people like me, especially because when you're a mixture of multiple things, it's hard to fit in any group. And growing up, I always thought I had to have this like one simple identity and fit in with everyone. So there were some phases where I acted like someone else other than myself. But I've come to realize living authentically is the most important. So I just accepted, the complicated Rabia. And I'm trying to reflect this through my music also. And it's about a young girl in the Black Sea region of Turkey who's very philosophical and contemplative, and every morning she wakes up and looks at this tree across their house and thinks about like how many interesting stories could have come out of it, and because it's a very old tree, so she's writing about it every day. And she finds out it actually has something to do about this Armenian musician, and she tries to find out the missing parts of the story. So my song goes, hold on, I don't remember the lyrics. So the first song lyrics goes something like, under a tree I listened with my eyes closed. Sometimes it had a cheerful voice and sometimes mellow. I wish I could tell all the stories, all the people that came and left. I wish I could tell. And just a side note, I wrote this as I was imagining myself as a leaf of the tree. Your imagination can do a lot of pretty amazing stuff. So it says, I fell down and flew away with the wind. No one heard my voice, and I went far away and broke into pieces. And so there were no more stories to tell because, it spread all around the world. And the second song is, it's a pretty depressing one. And I usually don't like sharing my depressing songs because it reveals too much about me. But, we all go through struggles, and sometimes you just have to share that with other people so that we realize, how like we are all going through the same things actually. So I was sitting in my office one day and I wrote these. I have a weird feeling inside me. The reason is unknown. How many times my heart is beating in a second, it's unknown. I hear the sound of an ambulance from a distance behind a foggy window. Buildings with how many floors, I don't know. How many people are staring pointlessly like I do? Did they ask the same questions? Would they be happy in wherever they go to? And the last part I got from a poem. I wish I was a child again so that it would hurt only when I fell and that my heart would beat only when... So the first song...
introduce you to my speakers. And we have Natasha, and she is an architect by profession and a storyteller and a photographer by heart. And she runs an initiative called Married in New York. And she's working around the idea of how we understand marriage. So we'll be hearing more from her. We have Muhammad Moiz, who's a doctor and activist, and he plays a very popular character of Shumaila Bhatti, who is a very blunt Pakistani woman. And she talks about some of the most challenging social norms that we have, and we will hear more about that from Moiz. And then we have Mariyah Tareen, who is an artist, and she works around really challenging ideas of imperialism and Orientalism. And she is the first Pakistani to be at the New York Academy of Art. And we will get to know more about you in a bit. So, my first question is from Natasha. Are you nervous? All right. So the first question, right? So what is Married in New York, and why did you start it?
So I started Married in New York in summer of 2014. I had graduated and I was severely unemployed and depressed. And my only social life at that time was babysitting my professor's twins, who were very adorable, but also after a while you need to talk to adults. And when I went over, he said, I was at City Hall the other day to get a copy of my marriage certificate for some legal stuff. And, it brought back memories of when I got married at City Hall. And, there were these people, all these different people who were there, some people in uniform because they were getting shipped out. And I think that's something that you should go check out. Just, go and see how it is. And, come back to me and we'll talk about the idea. So I went and, I spent, half the day there. And I was like this weird person sitting on a sofa just looking at everyone, smiling, and then furiously writing on my phone, ooh, okay, I understand all of this. What's going on? And I went back to my professor, and we started talking that, so what is this idea of marriage and why people get married at City Hall specifically? Because him and I both said, we understood that we hated weddings because we both come from different cultures. We both come from similar cultures where weddings are such a huge deal. He is actually Iranian Muslim, and he's married to a half American, half Dutch Jewish woman. And they have 3 beautiful kids. And they made it, there was a conscious decision to get married at City Hall. Because for him, what he said, which is very beautiful, he said, me getting married and spending a ton of money in the beginning is it's like being in debt for the rest of my life. Marriage is a marathon. You gotta hit your goals. And every child that we have, every house that we buy, every birthday that we celebrate is going to be a milestone. So that's how they approach the idea of marriage, and wedding is just sort of a show you put on. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And while I was at City Hall, first of all, I was like, someone definitely has to be doing something in regards to this. If I just randomly interview people, I'm sure someone's doing this. I can't be thinking of this on my own. But I went back home. And when I discussed it with my professor, I was like, oh, but what would I call something like this, where I interview people and I ask them why they're getting married? Why forgo the whole, party element of a wedding and choose a government building to stand in and wait around to get married? Because my experience with government buildings is the post office and the IRS, which, are not fun. So yeah, we started talking about that, and then I was going to approach it from the idea of that this government building is sort of like an equalizer of sorts, where people from all walks of life, different ethnicities, professions, nationalities are coming to this one place to get married, and they're all in the same hall waiting to get married. And they're happy, and they're complimenting each other, oh my God, you look amazing, or, where'd you get your dress from, or where are you from? It was just something really beautiful to see. And I was going to approach it from the idea of, a project where my main interest was immigration, because I'm an immigrant, and we all have stories, especially in New York, it's such an immigrant community. So I was like, what do I call something like this? And I was like, Married in New York, because when you say I got married in New York, you don't have to say anything else. People instantly think Central Park, Empire State Building. You know, they have all these iconic ideas of New York. It doesn't matter that where the building is located. It's called the City Clerk Marriage Bureau, and literally when you go there are trash bags. There's a hot dog stand, and it's like so loud. There are like all these tourist buses coming out. It doesn't matter where you get married. It's just saying the fact that I got married in New York is something very iconic. So I sort of locked that name down, went online, just got all my domains and whatever. And then I didn't start it immediately. I had to do some research because I thought, okay, the immigrant experience is great, but I don't know if that's going to come forth, like, if that's going to be communicated effectively by saying, just asking people where they're from. So then I started doing some research, and I came across this article from April of 2013 by the National Geographic, which was about the changing face of America and what America would look like in 2050. And the idea behind that article was that I'm sure a lot of you have filled out forms for either school or for government purposes where they ask you what your race is. You know, it's either Caucasian, African American, Black, or Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, or other. And the problem that now we're facing in America is that people don't really identify with those options anymore. A lot of people say other because there are individuals out there who are, their mom may be Korean and their dad may be Argentinian, and depending on what culture or what language or which parent's heritage was more prevalent during the formative years, they will identify with that. So if you're half Korean and half Argentinian, you may look Asian, but if your dad's heritage was more prevalent and you went back to Argentina a lot and you speak the language fluently, you're going to identify with being Argentinian. Probably. I mean, everyone has a different way. So effectively, they would not fit in those options. So that article was basically about how to deal with the census and like how to effectively, I mean, if we just fill out these boxes, we become a statistic, right? And then the government figures out like, oh, how do we service these minorities or these people? Like what laws should be passed? What services should be provided to them? But a lot of people can't be a statistic anymore. Like we're just, I don't know, we're all just beautifully mixed up now. So I thought that in relation to this project, what would be really great is that this could be the beginning of a community that will inform the community from 2050. Like these people who are getting married, they may have kids, their own biological kids, they may adopt, they may just influence people around them to say that, you know what, you don't have to get married within your own culture. You don't have to get married to people of, you know, the same community, basically. And it's a way to sort of see, like, I mean, I imagine, I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 2050, but if I flip back and I see all these photographs of people getting married, we'll start to see the differences. Because there are people that you meet. What I saw in the 3 years that I've been doing this is that there are two types of first-generation immigrants. There are people who marry within their culture, and then because their families are with them over here, and then there are people who come here for school, and they are exposed to different people, and they meet they're exposed to different ideas, and they end up marrying someone completely different from where they grew up. I mean, there was this one couple that I met. The girl was born in Sri Lanka. The guy was born in Poland. They had just recently moved, like maybe the last 10 years, had, you know, prominent accents. They met on the bus in the Bronx. And I was like, first of all, you're being so beautiful. And yeah, they fell in love and they got married. And I'm like, this is how it's going to be. Like, this is how it begins. Like, if they have a child in the next 5 years, I mean, I can't do math right now, but by 2050, you know, that's the community. That's the changing face of America. And so I started with immigration, but when I started interviewing couples and asking them why they were getting married, I mean, love is great, but it doesn't pay the bills. You know, I mean, people are in love and they're living together. They don't feel the need to get married. A lot of the issues of why people were getting married were health insurance. their partner has better health insurance. Taxes, because the government loves it when you're married. Like, they give you a tax break, right? If you're single, you're paying an enormous amount of tax. People are getting married because, same-sex couples are getting married because, you know what? At the time, it was not, same-sex marriage equality act was not passed. They were getting married because their state didn't allow it. They were getting married because they'd been together for 30-odd years, and they didn't feel the need to get married, but because they're older now, one of them might be in the hospital, like, if something happens suddenly, they want their spouse or their companion to make the decision of what happens to them, or for them to get all their estate or whatever happens after. People were getting married because now they have kids, and the kids ask questions like, "Where's your wedding picture?" Some people have already bought their house; they've already had their kids, and they're like, "Okay, we should get married now." So these are like the different issues that I faced, and I found out.
Yeah, that's great. That was a very good.
Sorry, that was like
a long introduction.
I know.
All right, so Moiz, you tell me, who is Shumaila Bhatti? Where does she come from, and what does she want?
Okay, quite an interesting. So, how many of you are familiar with Shumaila Bhatti? I don't see many Desi people, so I'm guessing 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, great. So, Shumaila Bhatti is this avatar of mine. I started off as the honeybee filter on Snapchat, and then it was the deer filter for quite a while. And then it turned into whatever filter comes with a feminine voice. These days, it's the cat filter. So, let's see what happens in the future. And how it actually began was, I used to be an Android person. All my friends are iPhone people. I got an iPhone. Snapchat was amazing on iPhone compared to the Android. I put on this filter and I began sending snaps as a random female to all of my friends. But this is what I'm doing. I'm making an egg. I'm making tea for myself. I just cleaned the toilet. Random stupid stuff like that. And then it just somehow started. And each day, Shumaila, the character that I was playing, would narrate a different story about herself. And it wasn't reductive. I wouldn't call it that. It wasn't preachy. And it was just funny. It was just me doing something. And all my friends would suggested that I should take it to Facebook or put it online. And I was really reluctant at first. But by the time I started putting it up on Facebook, I already had a bank of 15, 20 videos. But then after the 5th video, my audience grew substantially. So I hit the mark of 50,000 likes within 3 days. So it went viral in Pakistan. And the interesting bit is all the audience was female. Till this date, most of my audience is female, 88 to 92%. That's how it comes. Now, why is it interesting? Very few women in Pakistan have access to the internet. Very few of them are allowed to use social media. I wouldn't say all. But I'm saying if you have to do a comparative analysis between men and women, girls are generally reluctant to use social media for a lot of different reasons, which we can talk about later if it goes there. So Shumaila was targeting a niche audience, which was remarkable in its own way, but it was also different because nobody had really catered to this sort of audience ever. The average girl on the street, the average middle-class Pakistani girl who faces issues dealing with patriarchy as it is, but they're not as pronounced as the media would like to depict it. It's violence is a spectrum, is how I would like to call it. There is this end of the spectrum, which is extreme, brutal, femicide, sexual assault, honor killing. Then you have everyday casual sexism, which is the other end of the spectrum. And a lot of people fall in this end of the spectrum. And these issues are never highlighted, even in Pakistan's contemporary media, through humor, or in journals, or newspapers. The issues that you see highlighted are these. That is stuff that people can understand, but that is stuff that people can't relate to. Now, this is stuff that people can relate with, and that is so commonplace that it has literally become the daily routine. It has become the daily grind. So if you look at it from a lens of violence, people won't respond to it. Because that's literally their daily grind. They're like, oh yeah, this is not violence for me. It's the same this way, a few weeks ago, there was this huge debate on sexual harassment in Pakistan, where a doctor examined a female patient who was the sister of a prominent Pakistani film director who's also won the Oscar twice. And later on, he had the nerve to look her up on Facebook and send her a friend request. Now, that is creepy as hell. But that film director made a Facebook status about it. People were all up in arms against the director and not the doctor. They were actually defending him. So there was this huge debate about what is sexual harassment and what is not sexual harassment. A lot of the women, you see them online, and they were like defending, they're like, oh yeah, what is it? We get like 1 million friend requests daily. This is not harassment, I'm used to it. So you see, this is one aspect. If you examine it from a lens of violence, people won't respond to it. Because they don't see it as violence. For them, it has become the daily grind. Shumaila was doing the opposite. She was doing exactly what these people do, narrating it as a daily story. But by narrating it as a daily story and linking it with humor and turning it into a joke, she was actually holding a mirror to the society, and people were responding to it. They were like, oh yeah, you're onto something. I can relate with this. This is something that I felt as well. And that wasn't the purpose. I really did not start it as a means of bringing about social change. I've always said it that was a byproduct, because I did not want to fall into the preachy social media celebrity sort of territory. So the social change was a byproduct, which has pretty much been a leash for me as well, because that's what people hold me with. They're like, yeah, we want a good moral of the story. We want a good message from your videos. So that's also stifling it a few times, but that's how Shumaila started, and that's how Shumaila is going forward.
But you also have a lot of activist work in Pakistan and now in the US. So, I mean, as you're saying, it turned out to be a byproduct, but literally it's not a byproduct. You were an activist.
I mean, yeah, who is Shumaila? Shumaila is, at the end of the day, Shumaila is me. So whenever people ask me, who's the inspiration for Shumaila, was it like, who's the Shumaila in your life? Was there a girl that you were inspired by? I'm like, yeah, no, Shumaila is literally every person around me, including men at times. So what we tend to do is, I mean, I've always maintained this, gender is a performance. Judith Butler was right. At the end of the day, that's what gender boils down to, at least for me. So we all have a feminine aspect to ourselves and a masculine aspect to ourselves, and I think that is even extremely reductive of looking at it. There's no such thing as a masculine or a feminine aspect. We are all human beings. So women were never the other for me. So people are like, okay, yeah, women are so complicated. Oh my God, how do you understand them? BS. That is just masculine laziness is what I call it. You know, just because you've been unable to understand women as equal counterparts, you're like, oh my God, women are so complicated. If there was ever a book on women, it would be an encyclopedia. That's just really random stupidity, like seriously. So I've never seen women as the other. And yes, activism has always been a part and parcel of my life. I started whatever activism it was at the age of 17, I guess, and it's spanned a lot of different territories. I would say that LGBT rights has been my mainstay. It will continue to be my mainstay. There's been a lot of work on gender, anti-militancy, anti-colonization, anti-radicalism. So it's like been a big pool from which I can literally borrow and knit stories that touch most of these causes, which again make it relatable because I'm not examining it from an activist lens. I'm examining it from a lived reality sort of a lens, which is what makes it relatable, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Mariyah, so, hi. So, we all know that you're a self-taught draftswoman and a painter, and there are many themes that you work around. So, can you tell us more about the kind of themes that you work around and what interests you most?
Okay, I did make notes because I'm not that articulate. I'm a painter, so I thought I'd write something down. But, okay, so I obviously like my life in North America because before New York, I studied in Canada. And it was life-changing. And like, you know, New York has also been very transformative, especially like how today's politics are panning out. Like, we see what's going on and, you know, it affects me as well. But I didn't think that my artwork would eventually become so, you know, reactive, which it has, like, because now I focus on making art that sort of, it dismantles, like I aim to dismantle propaganda, Orientalism, which in modern day, like if you look at it today, it's propaganda. And with that, I address Islamophobia. I could say like, maybe even like issues within the Islamic community and racism, classism. So primarily, like I would say that my work, I could split it into like two parts. I'm addressing the people who the propaganda is about and the people, the propagandists, those who are making the propaganda. So, like, when I talk about us, propaganda is about people of color, the other, whoever's not European, whoever's the outsider, the immigrant, the alien, basically, those who are otherized, wherever you're coming from. And you can, turn on mainstream TV. I'm not even talking about, like, Fox News. You don't have to go to, like, the right. I'm talking about, like, CNN. I'm talking about BBC. And you would find something that attacks you. You would find, like, even today, like, look at what the government is doing. Most of us feel attacked. If you're not American, if you don't have the privilege, if you're not white, most of us feel attacked by the policies that are being implemented, the laws that are passed. So coming back to my art, the work that I make about for us, which is taking back the narrative. I'm painting us. I'm painting people that are that look like us, that are people of color, that are Muslims, that are not the standard, which is, America, which America doesn't want to accept. And these people actually are Americans, but it's just that they're not accepted as such. So when I say taking back the narrative, how many times, like, if we talk about Pakistan or India or the Indian subcontinent, were there any depictions of us that actually represented us? And I'm not talking about British painters or French painters that came to the area and painted us how we were, not through their lens. I'm talking about, were there any painters who painted us as how we are? Because miniatures do not represent, we do not look like that. And we don't have anything that we can, fall back on. So because, art is culture and it's history, there's chunks missing from our history. Okay, we have the camera now, and we've advanced since then. We've had printing since then. Fair enough. But we still pay the price for that missing link, for that missing art, because we never took back the mic. We never took back our narrative. So I feel like part of what I do is, like, I paint Muslim women who wear the hijab, women who look different, dark skin. So, men, because our men are demonized. Black men, Muslim men, man with a beard. These are stereotypes. We all know them. And I'm sure that some people here, they've come across them and they've dealt with them themselves. So, this is what I wanted to do. So I'm painting these people that look like me, that look like my parents, that look like my loved ones. And maybe even different than that. And the other part, which is addressing the propagandists, which is, making art to dismantle that idea, which is Orientalism, which is, modern day propaganda, which hurts us. That I would say you sort of counter that in your work. You make conceptual work that maybe you make paintings ironically, which I do. And you address these issues, and they're so wide. Like, it's a big. You can keep going. Like, there's imperialism. There's the war on terror. There's a war on drugs. There's mass incarceration. There's black sites. There's so many issues, but you can make art about these, and people will listen because people are not opposed to art. People not opposed to stories. Not opposed to any form of literature or, movies.
I have a question on that. So what I get is that you're working on some of the most historically controversial themes like imperialism or Orientalism while you are in the West. Yeah. So how has that been for you? How has the work been received here?
It honestly depends, like, in what circle I am, and I, like, mostly, like, in my education, like, I've been in white schools, and I'm always, like, the only one, the only Pakistani, the only Muslim, the only one who looks different, like, and that has been difficult, because people can be, like, I'm gonna say something that some of you might agree with, and others might not. So I find that there's some issues today that people are more sensitive, like when discussing, and they apply political correctness to them when they know that people are around them. But I found, through my experience, that Islamophobia is not one of them. People do not extend that courtesy of political correctness to Islamophobia. Yeah, I mean, like someone would say, yeah, all Muslims are terrorists. Yeah, all of you, like, you know, sleep with your cousins. Yeah, all of you, you know, they don't reserve that political correctness for us. They just don't. They're not sorry for it. Because, like you said, it's America. Or that's Canada. They're not sorry, like, so you always, I found that made me start making reactive work. Because I was so defensive all the time, like walking in a classroom and having heard stuff from, like, people asking me, does your father have, like a farm? Like, does he have goats? You guys go to school on an elephant? And it's like, you know, this is like 2000, you know, like, so it's taken well by, now I find, like, now I'm, you know, like, I'm very grateful and I'm well connected with Muslim Americans, brown Americans, and Black Americans, and I find that sort of gave me comfort. And besides, New York is very liberal, and New York is like, you know, this is call it like a safe zone. It's different than the rest of America. I know this for sure. So here it's perceived different. People do give me a platform, even when they're like, oh, all right, let her speak. Like, you know, they look at me like, oh, she's trying to get some white guilt out of us. Like, let her speak, you know. And I can see that it's like, oh, there she goes again, that kind of thing. Like, and I'm speaking, and it seems like it's turning into like that, you know, like I'm finally speaking up, and it's so dramatic, and like, I may as well burst into tears and start crying, like, but no, like, you know, then there's people who have my back, like, they feel the work, and they relate to it, and, yeah, and, like, there's been instances which have been really great for me, because, like, people who commission me, right, it's always people that are the other in America's eyes. They want to be painted. They want to be represented. They want to have a part of, you know, this is them preserving their identity through a painting. So that's been different, I guess. Yeah.
Very interesting. Again. Yeah, so I want you to share a story with us that really touched you. And what was the story?
Oh, from reading your
From Harry? Yeah.
I feel like this one. So in, I think, December of 2015 or December of 2014, I can't remember, but I met this couple. It was like freezing cold, and so I can't go inside and photograph at City Hall. Unless a couple takes me inside, because now they know me, because they're like, you're not here, go out. Unless I come in with a couple, because they want to protect everyone's privacy, and I understand that. So I usually stand outside on the sidewalk, and this one couple was looking for a witness. And there was a same-sex couple, 2 women from North Carolina, and they asked me if I would be their witness, and I said, oh, you know, I run this project, could I possibly interview you? And so I went in with them, and I started asking them about who they were and what their story was. And they had met, like, 2 or 3 years prior, and the woman who was from America, like, she's white, she was born and raised in North Carolina. She had been married 3 times to, like, different men. First husband, she had a son. Second one was very abusive. Third husband was sort of like a marriage convenience. She got pregnant and had a baby girl, and, you know, she wanted to give the baby girl some stability, so she married her husband. But she said, like, you know what? Since I was a little girl, I've always felt different. And I knew that there was something, like, I was meant for something else, but I was in a small town, and, you know, you can't fight that sort of mentality. So, you know, she sort of pushed through life, and she was, like, in her late 40s, actually. And then the other woman, she was Venezuelan. And she, too, was married to a man once. And she was a teacher in Venezuela, but she was extremely unhappy. And she moved to America to teach, and then finally got an opportunity where she could stay and, get her green card and everything. And they both met while they were with other partners. By then, they had left their husbands and everything, and they were pursuing the life that they wanted. And they, they met each other at a party for kids with special needs. And, they said hi and whatever, and then 2 years later, they met again. And by that point, they were not with their partners. And, they were sitting down. Like, I think the woman who was from Venezuela, she was moving out of her apartment. And she, the woman from North Carolina, I don't want to say their names, so I'm just going to say S and V. S and V. Okay, so S came with a mutual friend, and they were helping V move out of her apartment. And V was very emotional. She had just gone through a very horrible breakup, and they were sitting down and talking, and they became friends, and eventually they were in a relationship. But a year before they came to City Hall to get married, V was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was very traumatic. It was very emotionally draining for V, and S was with her the entire time. Every horrible day that she had with chemo, V lost all her hair. She looked absolutely stunning though. She's like wearing this beautiful bow tie. And, she's dressed up, and she's like, I only got through what I got through because of S. Because if she wasn't there, I think I would have died. I would have killed myself or something. And I was just like so taken aback, and I was like, are you sure? Are you okay with me sharing the story? They're like, yeah, we want you to share these stories. These are important stories that are happening in America. People demonize us because they don't understand us, but we're human beings, we have feelings, we have these ideas for our lives, we're all the same, we have the same struggles. And so what? We're living in our own houses. We're not taking money from you. You're not paying our bills, We're just human beings who want to live the lives that we feel like we're meant to. And so I went with them into the ceremony room, and they got married, and we hugged, we cried, and then we went for lunch. We walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, and we went and got some Grimaldi's pizza.
Do you do that often with your?
If they ask me to, sure. Yeah, I'll go for lunch. But some couples are really nice. Yeah, they'll take me out, or they'll donate to the project, because I don't take money from the project. I always say that I just want to know your story. But some couples feel like they want to fund the project because it's entirely self-funded. So, yeah.
Okay, that was sweet.
It is. I meet a lot of sweet couples. Yeah.
All right, so Moiz, so your expression around queer visibility and challenging masculinities is very progressive in Pakistan. So, what do you hope to gain from this effort, and what's your take on that?
Oh wow. Very loaded question, because what do I hope to gain from it? So see, if I have to give an idealistic answer, but is there any idealism left in Pakistan? That's another big question. So initially, when you started off talking about how some narratives are invisible, or how your event page said they've been condemned to in media presents Pakistan as a certain manner. Hollywood has always treated Pakistan as the terrorists, or people assume we ride goats to school. Although we did have baby goats, I grew up in the mountains. Yeah, so almost on a farm, almost. We also had a cow though, but she did not live in the house. There was a cow shed separately. It's like manned by other people, and that's how it happens. But that's a story from the north. That does not happen all across Pakistan. But coming back to the point, you see that's how it happens, and we assume, even we progressive people, we liberal people assume that by highlighting liberal voices, somehow the conservative rhetoric or the conservative narrative gets undone. Or if you look at it the other way around, by just highlighting the conservative narrative, the liberal narrative or the progressive narrative somehow gets affected. I don't think that's true. I don't think either of them undo each other. Both of them exist in their own spaces. For instance, in New York, the norm would be for somebody to be a liberal, progressive Democrat, right? That's what the norm here would be. The other might be a Republican person or somebody who's extremely conservative. That might be the other. That might not be the case in other parts of USA, where being liberal might be the anomaly, where it's surprising if somebody comes out and says, oh my God, I'm a Democrat. I support same-sex marriage. I support women taking control of their bodies and terminating a pregnancy if they have to. Stuff like that. So changes. Political opinions change from space to space. And Pakistan similarly isn't a monolithic society. It is extremely different. It has different provinces. Provinces have their own governments. Do I hope to see Pakistan becoming a fair, just, and egalitarian society for LGBT people or queer people? Hell yeah, I want that to happen. But then what does egalitarianism or equality for queer people in Pakistan look like? That is another question, because what are we trying to do over here? What are the problems that queer people have in Pakistan? How are those problems different from straight people? That is also another question, because let's say the entire narrative of queer rights in the West has been dominated by marriage equality. But marriage in Pakistan is not an institution of love. In Pakistan, even in India for that matter, marriage is a social institution. You don't get married because you're in love. You get married for a barrage of other reasons. Sometimes you do get married, but that's not the predominant discourse. That's not what marriage is there for. Marriage serves other purposes in Pakistan. So does the queer narrative even fit in within the ambit of marriage equality somehow in Pakistan? So it's very challenging examining what a queer voice or what queer equality in Pakistan would look like. So you need to have a vision for that. So we at least know what problems exist right now, like the casual homophobia, the casual transphobia, the everyday bullying at work or at school. These are problems that everybody at least agrees that, yeah, these are problems that exist. Now these need to be undone. So hopefully that is one thing that can be achieved, but am I optimistic? These days, not at all.
What are the steps that you've taken in this domain to bring more visibility to these problems and perhaps solve them? Are there any visions that you have in mind? Is there something that you're involved in right now?
Yeah, I'm the technical advisor for 2 organizations that are community-based. So yeah, but they do more health work. And I'm a public health specialist and I'm a doctor, so yeah, of course, that happens within that domain. Because a lot of times, even in the US and in European countries, when LGBT rights was started, when a conversation was started on them, that started from a lens of health. And HIV was a big issue. And the HIV became the portal through which we introduced the concept of human rights in health for LGBT people. And that's how it has happened in Pakistan as well for quite a while, actually, and in good measure. But now we are moving beyond that. And what we are looking at is, because trans people in Pakistan have always had historical visibility, somehow, yeah, exactly. So the conversation on transgender rights is somehow also generating a sort of a deconstruction of homonormative, discourses. For instance, right now we are believing that transgender people in Pakistan should be given the right to employment. They need to be able to vote. They need to be able to contest elections. For people here who don't know, it's literally the opposite of the US. In the US, the LGBT movement was very gay-driven, and then transgender people kind of piggybacked on the movement. And it's just now that we are beginning to realize that US is way more transphobic than it is homophobic. In Pakistan, it is the other way around. We are a transphobic country and a society, no doubt about it, but transgender rights are way ahead. And gay rights are way behind. We don't even have a conversation on it or a discourse around it. That's literally the flip. It's the other way around. But having said that, we are talking about transgender people having the right to employment, transgender people having the right to vote, not being disenfranchised. 10 years down the road or even 5 years down the road, people will begin asking the question, transgender people will begin asking the question, but whom do we marry? You've given us ID cards. Our gender is the third gender. Our gender column says X. It does not say M or F anymore, and we like that. But whom do we marry under the Pakistani law? Because in Pakistan, sexuality or any sexual conduct outside marriage is also illegal. So that is also a challenge, and even that can be talked about. So I do see policy changes happening and conversations starting around it. For instance, in 2011, I made a prediction. I was supposed to write an article on it, actually, for the Friday Times, but then one thing or the other happened, and that never happened. I wanted to examine LGBT rights in Pakistan from a foreign policy perspective, because transgender women in Pakistan are extremely religious. And if you are a religious Muslim person, you would want to go to Saudi Arabia once in your lifetime to perform Hajj. Now, if you want to perform Hajj, If you're a man, you can do it. If you're a woman, you need to have a male guardian. Interest in Saudi laws, you need to have one with you. But what if you're transgender? In Pakistan, because the Saudi law only accepts two genders, what do you do then? So, and Pakistan sends, I guess, the most number of Hajj pilgrims, and Hajj is a source of revenue generation for the Saudi government, and although transgender people are going to be a small amount of that, if this problem does arise, there is going to be an issue, and that issue did arise last year. So, I do think there are like a lot of implications on Pakistan's policies that will happen, but things will change. There are two bills in the parliament right now on transgender rights. Both of them have been introduced by a center-right political party, which is an amazing thing, I believe. So that is something that is drawing a lot of broad political consensus. So let's see where this conversation goes.
Right. So talking about progressive thoughts, Maria, I want you to tell us something about the oppressed real woman painting that you made, and what was her story, what was she trying to tell, and what was the response?
Okay, so the idea I had behind this was actually this was a body of work which was based on stereotypes that I had experienced, that my friends had experienced. So the titles that I put for these pieces were, sarcastic. So this title is Oppressed Veiled Woman. So it's not of you. That's so extreme of you. Like, it's not really. It's not extreme if I go out in the snow, like when it's a storm. That's not Taliban of me at all. So it's just like the language, the phrases that surrounded me and like my friends, and also like stuff that I saw on the internet. I decided to use those as titles and make work. For another one I did was like, I made myself as Jasmine. I'm sure we've all heard it when people are hitting on you, and the go-to like compliment is like, oh, you can be my Jasmine. It's like, no, there has to be more than that, right? Like, I will never be your Jasmine because you said it. So this particular one, because I'm making them sarcastically, it's ironic. I use the stereotypical language, like I use the stereotype. I made her sad. I made her that oppressed woman because it's sarcastic. Those who get it. And I will not let it be published in a magazine that doesn't get it, right? Like, not if I can help it. If they gotta steal it, they can steal it. But this was, this is just like a project. Because I also noticed, like, we all know this, that Muslim women have been depicted as terror sympathizers, oppressed, voiceless, faceless, nameless, emotionless. They are the ones who bed terrorists, feed terrorists, and then they give birth to terrorists. So, I mean, just watch Homeland, watch American Sniper. That is, have you seen how people flock to see these movies and how they applaud? Where I saw American Sniper, people were applauding. So this is what I felt like. By making this work, I felt I was countering it, but not really, because not everyone gets sarcasm, not everyone gets humor. So it's going over the heads of most people. Like, especially like imagine someone not so intelligent and is still conservative and listens to Fox News, for them to see my work, and they would be like, yeah, she's saying the right thing. They are oppressed. You see, the thing I'm with them in that narrative, but I'm not. But that painting sold, by the way. So
It did.
yeah, it did. So I'm telling you, because you make something so beautiful, when people feel the aesthetic, they will even buy something they disagree with.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
In art, that works. When people love your work, when you can deliver as a painter, when you make representational work, and people can relate to it, people feel an emotion, they'll buy it. Even if they are, Donald Trump, like.
God.
No, seriously though. Like,
God.
no, maybe not
I would
Donald
like
Trump.
some gold though. It has to be gold.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So talking about Trump, I have my next question.
I have way too many feelings on this topic. How do I put this delicately? what's your question?
What's my question?
Yeah.
I cannot even ask it.
No, but you said Trump, and it's just like,
No, so you have to focus your energy on this particular question. So the kind of values that you highlight around marriage reflect a very pre-Trump idea of US, which was very diverse and accepting.
the Obama era.
Right. And so the currently the rightist movement and everything, that's really opposing to all those values. So where do these two intersect?
How do I put this? Yeah, I have to figure that one out. So I think, I believe the ethos of this administration is exclusion from the get-go. I mean, we saw this as soon as Trump became president, the Muslim ban. And now very recently it's been the whole DACA situation, taking away their rights. And then Nicaraguans and Hondurans and Haitians, they all had temporary status and they were taken away. Women's, you mentioned before, women's bodies, the idea of what a woman can do with her body is being questioned. Healthcare, which is such a central theme in everyone's life, is being questioned. When the Marriage Equality Act was passed, thanks to the Supreme Court, I think you're right, it was all these values that I talk about in the project are very pre-Trump era, and when the Marriage Equality Act was passed, it was very representative of that administration, of the Obama administration, I think. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It had some controversies, though, that seems like such an overstatement, given what we go through every day with this administration. But I feel like with this project, it just keeps my purpose with it, or my idea for it, is to show inclusion. That everyone who comes to America comes here for a variety of reasons. The idea to be able to pursue their ideas freely, to live as they hoped that they could. Economic stability. And with this administration, we are constantly questioning that decision. Why did I come here? This is even worse, you know what I mean? You come from where you do, and then you're this is not what I came here for. So, with Married in New York, it's inclusive because you have these people from different parts of the world who've come to New York. I will only talk about New York because, this is sort of the gateway, I think, into the United States. But, you come to New York from different parts of the world, you meet here, and you probably get married, or even if you don't, you live together, you make a life here. And your values, no matter how different they are, you make that compromise, or you understand where the other person is coming from, and then you act as a single unit and move forward, and that's what the American dream was. That's what they sold us, right? I mean, then stop raving about it if you don't want us to come here. Everyone wants to come here and just live freely, and that's what Married in New York is about. It's about inclusion. It's about having the power to make your decisions, be who you want to be with, and just be in love, So yeah.
Right. So, talking about inclusion. So as an individual who represents a Muslim society, how are your ideals and your orientation contributing to the understanding of this community in a diverse fashion? What is your counter-narrative to just the stereotypical image that Muslims have?
That's once again quite a loaded question, because I tend to look at it in two parts. Because one, there is an external vision of the Muslim society, and then there's an internal vision of the Muslim society, and the queer community has been historically invisible in both aspects. Queer people of color have just been exoticized or fetishized within the larger queer community, or within the larger community per se, and within their own communities of color. They're invisible. They are not talked about. For instance, how many Muslim events do you go to, or how many Pakistani events do you go to, where you see visibly queer people? And I'm not even talking about conservative spaces. I'll be talking about a Hillary Clinton fundraiser organized by a rich Pakistani doctor somewhere in Virginia, where 200 people are attending and 190 of them are from Pakistan. And all of them are going to be super rich, straight, married people. Gay people will be invisible. Trans people don't even exist. So, queer invisibility is an issue that happens within minority communities as of themselves. And then, of course, queer people of color are invisible in the larger culture as well. I don't necessarily think I've contributed a lot because at the end of the day, I'm a grad student who happens to be from Pakistan. I don't think I've contributed a lot to the queer community of color in the US. There are some, for instance, I am the grad rep with the Pakistani Students Association at George Washington University, and in March or February, we are hosting a panel talk on the past, the present, and the future of LGBT rights in South Asia. And we are doing it under this flagship month of ours, which is known as the South Asian Heritage Celebration. So, and that's the whole idea behind it, that because queer people and queer voices have been so invisible, whenever we talk about South Asia, we talk about our history, our wars, our culture, Bollywood dance, razzmatazz, this, that, pretty much everything and its documentation in contemporary media has been a result of the efforts of queer people in contemporary media, yet their voices are lost. Their voices are invisible. We don't hear them. We don't talk about them. The most famous line that I have in my Shumaila videos is Mani Khandi Papad. Is a line that basically was said by a very good dear friend of mine in Pakistan, who used to say that when guys used to flirt with him, like, excuse me, Mani Khandi Papad. Like, it's not even a sentence said by an actual woman. It's,
Can you translate that?
can it be translated? No, it can't. It's like, it's like one of those untranslatable. It's like, I don't eat French fries. Which basically means you're trash, I'm not dating you. That's what it basically translates to.
But it's a very funny way of saying it.
I mean, yeah, public.
Like
yeah.
junk food.
Junk food in a way.
Yeah,
whatever.
junk food.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in public health. Junk food is trash for me. Yeah. I still eat it though. Yeah, so like that came from there, and all women across the board related with it. They're like, oh my god, this line, it like floated so well that I've been using it repeatedly in each of my videos, and every time there are girls who come down and comment, yeah, man, Kali, they can relate with it. So see, it's an aspect of a hidden culture, of a hidden community, of a hidden voice, which has been otherized and marginalized, but when you normalize it and humanize it, as she said, making it aesthetically pleasing, people buy it. They're like, yeah, you know what, I agree with it. This other video that I did, Shumaila's video, where it was like, Shumaila's cousin gets married to a gay guy, and then she finds out. It did not demonize gay people, because I really worked hard on that video. Another aspect, there was this Digital Rights Foundation contacted me, and they wanted me to do a video on sexual harassment, or this harassment hotline they released. And that was the first video that I actually wrote a script for. I hadn't done that before, simply because I knew that if I make a video on sexual harassment, women are going to come and comment demonizing other women. Because that's how it happens in Pakistan. That, oh yeah, if you did not wear clothes like this, if you were talking to the right guys, who told you to send nudes to a guy? You know, stuff like that. You know, like it's always victim blaming, it's always victim shaming. So what do I do to circumvent that problem? So I introduced the idea of desperation. And that Shumaila was desperate. You know, it was December, she was feeling lonely, something happened, one thing led to the other, now this guy was trying to harass her, and Shumaila gets it. That, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna deal with you. So, it's like, you know, little stuff like this. So, this is where I think where visibility comes in. It's like how you present your voice, but then again, my counter narrative, as I said the previous time, even if I have a counter narrative, which I do, it would not undo the prevalent narrative, but that still does not delegitimize our narrative. So we need to understand that both these narratives are going to exist in a space for quite some while now. But we don't need to be silent, is what the take-home message would be.
I totally agree. I mean, this is what I keep thinking about in terms of my voice unheard as well, that having a counter-narrative doesn't mean that the negativity will go. It just means that you have another narrative, and even if somebody has to discriminate or stereotype or vice versa, it has to be informed. So the narrative needs to be out there. Now, what happens with the narrative?
Yeah.
Mariyah, talking about the impacts. What's the impact have you ever seen it? Can you relate to an incident where you actually saw the impact of your blunt work?
The impact, I'm not that level that recognized yet. I finished art school and I'm still trying to make it in New York because they say if you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. I'm still trying to make it. So I don't think it's had that kind of an impact. But here's what I believe. There's something that I have to accept, that the kind of work that I'm making in America, I have to accept that there might not be a market for it. Sure, it sells because I really, excuse my language, but I have this phrase that I'm gonna pimp this work. I decorate it so much because I have this thing where I just keep going into detail. So when I'm working on a drawing, it can take me forever, but it will be so detailed. I just, render it to the fullest. So I've accepted that there might not be a market for it. So when it sells, I'm really happy. But when you make work and it has political overtones, and you have as an artist, you have accepted a social responsibility, you know that because there's internet and everything, that you're making these images because now they will exist. They will forever exist. They will be shared. And at worst, they might become a meme. Okay? But they will be in that language. They're adding to that language. So let's say when someone uses a stereotypical image, the kind that I'm countering, the kind that I'm against, the kind that we all oppose. Another image could be used no, hey, what is Orientalism, right? It objectifies women. It presents them in a overtly sexualizes them, but at the same time they are the other. They are, they are there to be plundered, they're there to be, that's how it presents them. We're talking about these old paintings that if you still look at them, you see it. That the painter never even went into let's say the bath, or the bathhouse, or into the harem, right? But he still depicted a fantasy. He pretty much painted white women, but this is the other women. So this, in the grand scheme of things, it serves an agenda. It shows that, the women over there, they're very sexual, but at the same time, they're very oppressed. So, you wonder how it translates into today's imperialist narrative. We know that one of the narrative of the U.S. war on terror was that altruistic mission of saving the oppressed Muslim women. So you see how it translates to, those are not just paintings, those are not just an episode in Homeland, that show, or anything. Those play out into real stereotypes and that can affect people. And so this is, when I make my work, I'm countering that, and with full knowledge that it might not sell, but these images will exist there. They will be shared. They will exist on the internet. They'll be on my Instagram. They'll be there. And they will inspire other images. They will inspire another narrative. They open up whole worlds because, we all live on the internet, so. Yeah.
Great. Natasha.
Yes.
So, what's the future of married in New York?
I would say this, I think I would love to travel for it by sort of doing a compare and contrast of the idea of marriage, just strictly, over here I do it in City Hall because it's just, you meet the most people at City Hall, and it's a very, I can't go to every church and every wedding hall and be like, hi, why are you getting married? What's your story? So, and the idea of City Hall is not very, I think, especially in Pakistan, for example, the idea of getting married in court is she ran away from home. She ran away from home, they're probably a different religion, that's why they're getting married. So, I did go to Pakistan, but I went, in the thick of the wedding season, and which was not good because I did not logistically think about it properly, so I didn't get that many interviews. But I want to do a compare and contrast. Like obviously, as you mentioned before, like in Pakistan when we get married, it's a very social sort of thing. It's a social contract, right? The nikah is like a contract. Whereas over here, marriage is like, oh my God, we're in love and we're gonna get married and all of that. City Hall doesn't do that. City Hall is like, all right, you're here, you agree to get married, great, sign here, you're done, right? And that narrative is not celebrated enough. You know, people are like, oh, you're getting married at City Hall, how quaint. You know, like, how nice. But because people can't financially afford to get married, to have a big event. So over here, you know, it's very toned down, whereas in Pakistan, a social contract is like celebrated for days on days on days. Like, what, I think now 2-day wedding is considered conservative. I mean, unless you're having like a 2-week wedding in Turkey, that's where it's at now. So yeah, I would love to travel to other countries and I find out the idea of marriage in other cultures because, you know, in Pakistan, I mean, I am from Pakistan, right? So this is the only culture I know of, but I would love to like go to other places and see what their idea of marriage is.
Like, what does your activism look like in the future?
Does Shumaila go on a trip?
Shumaila go on a trip. Is Shumaila get married?
Shumaila?
Is getting married?
This is a very interesting question because this question was asked to me by Mag, the Weekly. They were like, okay, yeah, so Shumaila, what happens 10 years down the road? I'm like, okay, yeah, true, I've never thought about it. So maybe Shumaila will grow with me because I think Shumaila is such an intrinsic part of myself that as I age, like age wine, maybe she will age with me and let's see what happens to her. I tried to introduce a married Shumaila story in the middle. It was called Shadi Barbadi. This was last year in November. The idea was that Shumaila did get engaged to this guy and did get married, but then she had to get a divorce because it wasn't working out. Because I was getting a lot of messages from people saying that divorce is a big issue in Pakistan now. And just generally, you're not talking about the problems of married women, you're only talking about the problems of university-going single girls like Shumaila. So I thought, okay, yeah, you know what, I can summarize it in like a five-part series. The same people lost interest. And they're like, no, Shumaila shouldn't get married. I think it's this larger patriarchy where even female performers, when they get married, they are done.
Yeah.
So people did not want to comprehend. They just couldn't. They just didn't want to relate with the idea of Shumaila getting married.
Want Shumaila to go.
Yeah, Shumaila was like, no, she is this one woman that we can live through.
Yeah.
She does not need to get married. So that was it. So I discontinued it. I never concluded that story. Nobody noticed. People remember those parts for the humor because this guy that Shumaila does get engaged to is a guy who was this loser engineer guy who goes to an engineering university in Lahore, and people related with it because, you know, engineer guys in Pakistan are like, oh wow, I'm an engineer. So, you know, I'm like,
They're in demand.
exactly, they're in demand. And Shumaila was the opposite. She was like, excuse me, no, marry Khali Butler. So that's how it was going with her. So they remember the humor, but no, that didn't float well. Having said that, I was approached by a lot of media houses who wanted me to team up with them and produce content, but I don't know, there is so much unprofessionalism in Pakistan's media industry that I just don't even know, because two really big movie industries wanted me to do a script, a full-on movie script for them, and I was like, I've never done one before, are you guys serious? And they're like, yeah, we're serious. And then I looked at the movies that they were doing before that and I realized, oh yeah, I think my script is going to be the best one. Definitely, this is the trash that they're producing. So I began working on them and I was like, okay, yeah, so what we'll do is, I'll give you the story, I'll give you the synopsis, I'll give you the first 2 opening scenes. If you like it, let me know. We'll sign a contract, we'll proceed further. They saw the synopsis, loved it, saw the first 2 scenes, they were like, oh yeah, nothing like this has ever been done before. I love whimsical romantic comedies, that's me. So I was doing that, but from a very relatable sort of a lens, like very modern romantic stories, and the producers loved it. And then I said, sure, so let's do a contract now. The contracts never came.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, I don't get it. It's like, do they want me to produce the work, send it to them, and then expect them to pay me for it, you know, at their whims?
No, they want you to do it for free.
Probably, I don't know, so I don't get it. I'm like really confused what is happening because these were like 2 movies and 1 drama series. A 23 episode series that was supposed to happen, yeah. And the contracts never came, so I don't know where I'm going with it or where Shumaila is going with it. My activism, it will continue. Let's see how it takes shape.
But do you want to continue using the same character for the themes that you want to work on, or do you hope to do something different?
I think I have developed this sort of inertia now, and I wouldn't blame anybody else for it, I would blame myself just because Shumaila is so relatable and everybody loves Shumaila that I'm legitimately scared of doing any other character now, although there are some in my back. So that's why my page was never called Shumaila Bhatti. It was called Desi Bombshell, because the idea was to introduce other characters. But then Shumaila is such a cult that I'm like, okay, if I do something else and it's not as good as Shumaila, I'll be roasted alive. But there's still a few collaborations that are in plan. For instance, you might have heard about the new page, No Filters. Tamkina does it. She's this doctor and she also does a Dadi role. So Shumaila and Dadi are collaborating on a series now. Then we are also planning on doing a bit on sex education. So that's going to be quite groundbreaking. Let's see how Shumaila fits into that. Yeah, very sensitive. So basically, Shumaila will have a few questions, and she will hide her face and do ask those questions. She'll read herself. So that's the plan. So let's see how it goes over there. So I'm also trying to understand how's the landscape around social media performance changing in Pakistan, along with Pakistan's political context, and see how I fit into that. So it's like very variable. No set goals as of now.
Right. I think that's a good approach.
I can't wait. Sure. I can't wait.
Mariyah, so being the first one from Pakistan to be at the New York Academy of Art, what do you hope to do there in the future?
I've now graduated from there. Now, just personal plans. I'm trying to stay in America because I want to make work, and it's just like I have some plans here. But in terms of the kind of work that I want to make, I really want to step out of making this reactive work. Like, the kind of conversation that we're having, this is us having a conversation with ourselves. And this is the kind of art I want to make. I don't want to be, I hope to see a day where I don't have to address propaganda, Orientalism, any of this. Like, I want to make art for the sake of making art. Like, I'll give you an example though. That when I make art for the sake of art, there's always this one white dude who'll just come and say, okay, I'll tell you what I made though, like specific example. So I made like this still life, and just to be edgy, like just to be like different, like I tipped over a doll, right? So it's like a proper still life with like plants, fruits, and like plates, whatever. And just like there's like a little doll, but she's tipped over. Ooh, edgy, right? So this guy, he reads into it and he goes like, "Is this the fall of ISIS?" I'm like, yo, like, no, it's not. It's literally a doll tipped over. How did you make it about ISIS? Just because I'm making it, because he attaches a face and an identity to it. So he's like, this must be about the Muslim world and this is ISIS. It's like, so I want to be, I hope that there is a world where they do not fit this onto me because I don't want it. Don't put this onto me. And I want to be able to have, make art for the sake of making art, because as we know historically, like, where did we progress after partition? What was our narrative without outside influence? How would we have grown without the Americanization? What culturally, what would we have produced? Now we have painters like myself who go abroad, who learn, painting techniques that are, exclusive to, quote unquote, the West. And we bring it back. But can we still make art without that influence, without that, it's pretty much impossible, but, I would still appreciate that if I make art, or if other Pakistani, artists, or we make art, or in the broader community, the Muslim artists, that we have conversations with ourselves. And we are not necessarily always, as we are projected to be doing, always answering propaganda, or always talking about the issues that they expect us to be talking about. and this is, what I hope to do.
That's a big challenge.
No, yeah.
But it's a very sweet dream.
No, yeah, it's a dream so far.
So we're done with the questions. I'd like to thank all the speakers who joined us today, and your work is really great, and I wish you all the best in the future, and I hope that you're able to do what you envision. And I'd like to also thank everybody who came here, and I really appreciate the time that you've dedicated to listen to these stories, and I hope that we're able to host more events in the future in New York, perhaps in any other state. And keep an eye out for the updates. We'll be hosting an event soon in Lahore in December again. That's another Bola Chali event, but that's in Lahore. So if you have any friends that you'd like to mention that to, make sure you do that. Thank you very much for coming, guys, and it was great having you. It was great having you.
Thank you.